First of all, welcome. We're super excited for you to be here, and I think you're in a best-in-class police department personally, and so we're excited to see the growth. One question I have is the statistics on juvenile crime just skyrocketed last year, a really young age. The youngest, I was in journalism, the youngest I've ever seen, 13 to 15, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, because it was a mid-year stat, but skyrocketing over 50%. And some of the crime that we have in Alki has been a mix of adults and juveniles, but as a city, the parent who's raised, I'm older, but you know, our future, I'm worried about our future. What is your thought on how to approach this widespread problem?
Yeah, I think, so I've been really my entire adult life kind of dealing with juveniles from the time I was a teacher to now. One thing that I have learned is that you have to create a place and a space for our kids. We all have to work together. I don't believe in necessarily turning our back on them like some people want to do in punishment. To be honest with you, the evidence shows us that sometimes when they're incarcerated, they come out worse because they get an opportunity to refine whatever skill they think they may or may not have. But we have to come together like as a group. I always give one of my favorite quotes, which says, "It takes a village to do what? Raise a child." You know the second part of it? But there's actually two parts of that. It takes a village to raise a child. But the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down and just feel it.
Just feel it's warm.
Wow.
And so what happens is, a lot of times, because of circumstances that may be out of our control, they're not raised maybe in the manner that they should, and sometimes they're asking for help. And so we have to be that conduit. I think police are at an advantage, I really do, because we get to see that. We sometimes see first cases, and when you see first cases, we have to have the resources available to do that. A program that I really like is called the Child Development Community Policing Model. It was developed in Yale, and so what the model does is it attracts juveniles who witness crime and harm, because there's a correlation between those who witness crime and harm and those who sometimes become juvenile delinquents. And so the way the program works, and we had it in Greensboro, was that an officer goes out and takes a report, and let's say it's a domestic assault, and as an arrest happened to be made or everything assault, and a child is present, the child gets a referral, and that referral goes to what we call the child victim advocate. And the child victim advocate, their job is to connect that child with services where they sit and they talk about what happened, why there was an arrest made, what resources do you need, safety and wellness checks. And what the program really has shown is that we can reduce juvenile delinquency by addressing those first cases of where kids, we've done it, not we as in Seattle, but we as in policing. We've gone on the calls for hundreds of kids and seen kids who needed help, but because they weren't the principal, we kind of just left. And what happens is that child does not get, I think, some of the services that are available that we can, then what happens is that anger, that resentment, it just manifests itself. And so I believe in being a good partner and seeing those first cases, and if you see it, you have a responsibility to do something about it. And so I would hope that that's something that we could explore at some point. And then for those who are actively committing crimes like you talked about, we have to figure out how to put them on the right path, how to figure out how to get services to families.
Lieutenant Gardia, I just want to give you an opportunity to speak that question if you like.
So yeah.
If you like.
So our unit, our 3-hour section, we work out of headquarters. We have a partnership with community organizations, how they work the streets. So every time there's shots fired, every real time, like we text them, and they respond to the active scene, and then they try to de-escalate, try to prevent the next shooting. And then also, we do referrals sometimes with juveniles, and then they engage with the families, help them out, and kind of be their profile, so to prevent crime and to like, assist.
Thank you, Detective. Steve?
So you touched on this a bit, but you know, one of the things that the community has really noticed is staffing at our precincts. And you talked a little bit about recruitment and retention. Are there going to be things done differently than the way that has been done for the last couple of years, to the point where the community will actually see the increased staffing levels?
Well, I think it's almost a balancing, so, you know, you have officers who are retiring or leaving, and that's certainly their right. You know, if someone worked in this job for 30 years and they want to go, there's nothing I can do about that. But I do think that you're going to see more officers. I think we have maybe 20-something that's in the academy now, and I think we're going to start about 15 in the next academy. I'll be out there for graduation tomorrow. And so, you know, it's going to be incremental. There's some changes that, quite frankly, I would like to make, but I have to consult with, you know, the union contract, collective bargaining. You know, they bargain for work and things of that nature here, so I have to be careful about that. But everyone is doing valuable work. And so the idea is, especially with the crime prevention model, is that everyone has to pitch in. And we're going to ask everyone to do just a little bit more in support of the precinct captains, and you will see the future benefits of that.
Just a follow-up, are available seats at the academy, is that an hindrance to bringing more officers on quickly?
No, I actually went, it's a good question. I actually went to the academy yesterday, and I spoke with, I think she's the director, I can't think of what her title is, but she has said that SPD is the priority. And so if we need a seat, we get a seat.
Thank you.
And they're actually opening up a new campus. I can't remember the city, but that's also an option for us if we need that. But we're not turning, if we have a person who's qualified, they're ready to go, we will find them a seat somewhere. Yes.
Thank you again. Going back through the stats reporting and thinking about some of the community members that I've talked to recently as we watch cars speed up and down our residential streets, and some that aren't really equipped for all those speeding things. And I've noted with the stats that maybe once upon a time, I'm probably living in the past, a speeding stat might have been excessive speed or road rage may have been part of that. I noticed you didn't bring that up. My question is the other thing is I'm used to telling the community, if you see something, call 911, get a case number, just do it. I don't care if it wasn't a great experience, do it. They need it, you need it, do it, do it, do it. So, is there any way to influence through reporting and deal with the, I'm going to call it the crime or the avoidance of a law of speeding? I'm used to crime prevention through environmental design and different ways to approach that, but they never mention speeding, and I know that so many people deal with that, whether you're along Alki watching people fly into the water, which you're not supposed to do. Or case in point, we've had one fatality of speeding on my street and so many near misses. I counted 4 different intersection disagreements today. So is there any way of ever dealing with that? Because it seems like with the rage that comes from living in an urban area and having to deal with things and folks who just don't feel like following the rules, is there any way of elevating that particular component, or am I just like, there's enough out there, Deb, just sit down?
I do not think you're delusional, Deb. I absolutely think you have something, that you're onto something, right? That is a very, very big concern for a lot of the community. I can tell you right now, how they get their stats, and Jen, you can assist on this, but how they get their stats a lot of times is if there's an accident involved.
Right.
Which at that time it's kind of too late. I know that they have red light cameras in certain areas. like 6th and James, if you know, I've told you that before. So coming out of headquarters, there's one, you literally get stuck in the intersection and watch the light change, and then you're like, hey, because it's, oh no, enforcement kind of a thing. But there's also, you know, we had a very robust traffic unit,
Yes.
and that has dwindled. We had some people retired, some people moved on to other units. We're hoping to get those numbers up, and I know that is a plan of it. But we also have, what we do, and you know, you won't ever hear me immediately go to staffing as an issue. We all know staffing is an issue. We're working on it. It's very promising. When he's saying 15 seats, when I went through the academy, it was 4 SPD, 4 seats for SPD. And it was that way until very recently, because it's a state academy, right? So they are absolutely making a priority. Chief Roar was very instrumental in ensuring we got additional seats. But my point is, the staffing will come. It's not gonna happen overnight, but what can we do with the people that we have right now? And we have people that have been trained, like on motorcycles in the traffic unit, that are not part of the traffic unit, but they were trained by us, and they work at this precinct. So my goal is to get them to, and I've talked to the captain of traffic, and said, look, how do we have this happen? I mean, we're not gonna have a ton of motorcycle cops out here, or what have you, but we do have people that are trained, and they are willing to let them come to where the bikes are, motorcycles are, come to where those are, check out a motorcycle, confirm it with a supervisor, and then they get to practice stuff that they don't normally, I mean, they don't get to ride a motorcycle all the time, and now they're specifically emphasizing traffic. So it's not like they're not responding to 911, so these are usually extra shifts. If for some reason we're lucky enough to have a more robust staffing for that day, and they want to do that for part of their day, I have no problem doing it, but again, you gotta get everybody in the room to agree. But it's such an important skill that if you don't get to practice it or you don't get to utilize it, and it is a resource, and just like the chief was saying, I have been empowered to ask for what I need. That wasn't always the case. So this is a big deal, and I'm excited about it.
Is there something that the community
Yes.
can do
So,
other than Paula's doing?
no. Go ahead, Chief.
No, you go ahead.
Well, the community has. So the community, one particular community, Snake Hill, I don't know who's here from Snake Hill. And we did a walkout, or what was it called, just a walking tour. And which is very eye-opening when you're actually out there on your feet, looking at all the issues. And this neighborhood has been working on getting sidewalks forever. Okay. Now, they keep getting told, it's happening, we've got a proposal, blah, blah, blah. And everybody's very well intentioned, but we all have different things you have to contend with. One of the things for Snake Hill was, we don't have sidewalks, these kids are walking to school, and people are flying. Now, we did get, you'll like this, I don't know if you have this or not, but they're called speed cushions. You know. So, they're very low. Okay, Seattle thing. It's a Seattle thing. Yeah. So they have speed cushions, but they're very far apart. So you can get momentum, right? And then you're just basically, it's not even big enough for you to do that. So, or they're in a place on the road that you can literally drive around it, right? So they put some speed cushions down on Alpine, and same complaint, right? If they're too low, they're too far apart, you're able to get around it, et cetera. So we're talking to our partnering agencies, right? So is that SDOT?
Yep.
Yes. So that's SDOT. We don't have any SDOT here tonight.
No, they don't cover things.
No. There was we're gonna get them that one, all right? So, we talked about, and again, I'm a simple person, I don't really understand how a lot of that stuff works, but I said, can't we just add a little bit of asphalt to these already existing cushions? Like, is there something we can do, right? Regarding Snake Hill, I did contact the traffic unit and said, what happened to those they're called speed trailers, where it says you're going this fast, or Interestingly enough, that's a huge deterrent. But,
And it used to be, you know, you used to
Oh,
never
you
know
see it
when you were
everywhere.
gonna see it. There.
right. So we're gonna put something out there right now. I think there's like 3 that we have or something like that, and 1 is in the shop. So I am a very much follow-up, tell me when I can expect this, etc. We had a motorcycle officer there, and I get it, it's not all the time, but we did have a motorcycle officer there within about a week and a half after I called and said, I need some presence down here, and I'd like to, in good faith, have some people down here. And we got some. Again, he's got all of Seattle, traffic unit is all of Seattle. But we do have officers that are here that are trained in the motorcycles. And then, of course, we have our officers that in between calls and everything else, they can stop people that are speeding. And the school cameras, those are a huge deterrent. As well as, I don't know, I used to live over here back in 2008. And my lieutenant advised me that the speed limit is no longer, what was it, 30 or 35 now?
Yeah, it's 20.
20. And I have people behind me just, what is she doing? And I have to stay at 20. It's hard. It's hard.
If you're on 35th, it's 25. 20 on residential is 25 on
Yeah.
our.
Okay, thank you. Well, then I understand why they were doing that, because I was up there. So, that's okay. We all need to slow down. Yes, ma'am.
I would just add to what you said about speed bumps are supposed to be a deterrent, they're not. But the other issue is that there's no sidewalk, the street is not that wide.
Right.
2 years ago, I witnessed a young man get hit, he was a little boy, because they don't cut the grass all summer on the sides of the road, and this lady was driving west, the sun was in her eye, I knew she was gonna hit him, not coming from opposite direction, I can see her, and I'm honking and waving, and she looks at me like, what? And she hit that boy, and he wound up in the ditch, rolled off the hood of her car into the ditch, she never stopped.
Oh.
And I tried to stop to get him, and I think he was in shock, he ran off, and somebody called later down at Case Dim, and I think they came, So there's a number of issues, not just the lack of sidewalk, but where do you go when somebody's gonna hit you, and all that high grass in the ditch? Or do you stand there and take your chances with the car?
Right, and there were other partnering agencies there, so SDOT was there. We had, they were talking about, we had horrible lighting while we were out there. And so they were talking about adjusting or trimming the trees that are through there to be able to get the light through it. And then somebody mentioned something about, are these lights supposed to be yellow? I thought they're supposed to be white, so we've been waiting to get a response from this for a little bit more illuminating lights. And then, what was the other thing? We had that, there were encampments over there for a while.
UCT and Parks were both.
Yes, so our unified care team, which is essentially a lot of what they do is related to the encampments or RVs. And they have a point system on how they triage because it's such a overwhelming issue. But Parks was there as well because there is a park nearby, but also the green belt and all of this. So it is exactly like the chief is saying. This is our community. So I would love to hear back from you on solutions as well, besides just alerting us to what is needed.
Thank you. I want to, Carol's been waiting for
So, we had recently 2 meetings in South Park. The second of which was supposed to have been our block watch meeting, but it turned into a continuation of our community care meeting, where in South Park, the major concern right now is, because of things happening nationally, concerns about ICE and immigration issues. And, South Park is a 65% immigrant community, and then we're connected to various folks in Southwest and South Precinct who have similar profiles. And our captain and our community liaison officer, Barreto, did a great job in sort of quelling some of the fears in the room about SPD collaborating with immigration. But I think, too, to the earlier question about staffing, trust is the biggest issue, when dealing with police and community relations. I come from Northwest Baltimore. I've had people put away because of the RICO Act, deported because of the 94 crime bill. I'm a F the police kind of person naturally, baseline, right? But I work with law enforcement regularly. How do you see your administration, I call it administration, as the chief, working toward building up that trust with communities that are, let's say, not aligned with the big business interests that have been moving things in the city for the last little while?
So, many neighborhoods never had it in the first place. We're talking about building it, we got to start somewhere. And I know that firsthand. Here's how you do it, here's how we're gonna do it. We have to do what we say we're gonna do. We have to be present, not just there, but we have to be present. We have to understand procedural justice and how we treat people, that every time we interact, you know what you're gonna get. That's called consistency. We have to make sure that we give people voice, that we treat people fairly, that we treat people with respect, and that we let people know that our decisions are neutral. Doesn't matter where you're from, what color you are, or what the issue is, everyone's gonna get treated the same. If you're speeding, you're doing 10 miles over, you're gonna get a ticket, doesn't matter what. And we have to make sure that we're holding each other accountable, and that just doesn't mean that officers get in trouble. Accountability starts long before that even happens. Accountability starts with making sure we give people the tools, training, time, technology, and team to get the job done. And that's how we start to build trust, one thing at a time. It's like building a sandcastle, just one grain at a time. And anything can happen, and you gotta start all over again. It doesn't even have to happen here. We saw that in 2020. It could happen anywhere. I won't go back to that. But what I will tell you is, it's tough. We're committed to doing it. And I think we have officers with not only the professional experience, but we have officers like you talked about that have the lived experience too. Sometimes we don't share that. Sometimes we don't want to talk about that, hey, we're from the neighborhood too. And I think we have to start doing that. Starting with who you are. I started this conversation with who I am as a person, not Chief Barnes. When I shake hands with people in the room, I tell them my name is Sean Barnes, because that's who I am. And I think that's how it begins.
Thank you.
Thank you. And first of all, a shout out to Captain Bear and Jennifer Satterwhite. They've already been to our Rotary Club to speak.
She's amazing. She's my favorite captain. The only one I'm
Let me echo the concern about the relationship between ICE and Seattle Police. That's come up with the West Side Interfaith Network that has a Saturday meal market. A lot of concern about that. But my question is different. It goes to the wellness issue, I think. How can this community best encourage and support our police?
It's a good question. I want to answer the first part. So there is no relationship between SPD and ICE. There's never been a relationship between us. I did put out a statement a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure it probably got glossed over in the myriad of news that's coming out of Washington. But our department has a long-standing policy. That policy is certainly similar to what the mayor wants from his administration. But nevertheless, we don't ask about immigration status. We're not participating in what they're calling ICE raids or whatever. We have an officer who's on the task force, and that task force is attached to ICE. Our officers are immediately excluded from that. So that's not something that our department has ever been involved in that I know of, and it's certainly not something we're going to be involved in. So that stance has not changed. To the issue of support, I feel like, officers want to know that that you have their back. A simple thank you, works. Working with precinct captains, thinking about what can you do, whether it's a holiday or something. officers are here working, especially the officers that like me, who are always on nights, always on nights. You know, they like to hear from folks too, like to see people at briefings and lineups, you know, sharing stories, learning who they are, learning about their neighborhood. That goes a long way. You can't even put a dollar value on it. And talking with your captain saying, hey, what do you need from us as a community? And sometimes it's just a matter of showing up makes all the difference to the officers. But I don't want to speak for them for what they may need. I think that's something, a conversation that we have at the precinct.
Can we bring cookies?
Yes, absolutely. Feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to make any kind of donation to the precinct. We had a few around the holidays, and it was very well received by our officers. They appreciated goodie bags. So if that's something you're interested in, please feel free to reach out. Happy to talk.
I'm gonna double check for my community week before. Go ahead.
I'm interested in hearing more about messaging because because of the perceived shortfall of officers, right? There's always been, like, the past few years, this messaging that we can't come to your crime, we don't have enough people, we can't dispatch anybody, we can't sit on traffic, we can't, I have 6 neighbors on my one little block that have expired tabs. We could be ticketing all those people and making a lot of money for the city budget, but what we're sort of feeling, I'm feeling like there's this kind of problem. So we had a little shooting in our neighborhood where somebody was out testing their gun a couple weeks ago, and because the neighbor has no faith that the police are going to show up, he goes out with his own weapon, then we have a little gunplay, a whole raft of other kind of resources had to be called in, helicopters, this and that, right? Nobody's ever caught. Fortunately, it was just property damage. But the messaging that we don't have enough bodies or what have you is really detracting from the effectiveness of the force, in my experience. And I feel it's kind of like herd immunity. Like if you can take that officer and put them on that speeding street. I have a horrible speeding problem on Highland Park Way. People, you could make a fortune on that with one officer. They used to sit there all the time. And we don't have it, right? So because of that, nobody follows the rule. Whereas if you think you might get caught, it will slow down 80% of the people. And it's just like getting a measles vaccine, right? You just got to get 92% of the people slowing down, and it will slow everybody else down. But because we don't have that, people now think it's okay to break the law. I can walk around with a black license plate cover or no license plate, and there's absolutely no recourse from the police. Sorry.
Yes. So, all exactly how I feel. But I want you to understand something. I really try hard when I go to roll calls or I'm talking in front of communities or talking with my command staff. We should not be bringing up staffing because it does detract from what they can do. And they are still very much able to do a lot with those few numbers that they have. Not saying we're putting them in a unreasonable prediction of doing something that's going to put them out in an unsafe situation, but that's where we got to get creative and think outside the box, right? And think of different things. I don't know about, is that accurate as far as ticket revenue goes to, because there was like a thing on that, but that's not actually the case.
Well, the majority goes to the states. The PO's part goes to the city. The PO tickets go to the city revenue.
Okay, thank you. So there's that. The other thing is that I do think this is problematic, and again, it is something that's also changing, and unfortunately, it is consequential to you all. So the chief was talking about procedural justice. I always have to be reminded about what procedural justice is, because there's so many, if it's not an acronym, it's another term that I am not having an easy time following. So procedural justice is essentially, let's say, for those of you who might not know, let's say you get pulled over, and you're treated fairly, you're treated with respect, you recognize that you were doing something wrong, and you got a ticket. You don't have as big of an issue with the ticket, you still don't say you got a ticket, but you don't have as big of an issue about the ticket knowing what the rules were, what was, that this is consistent, that the next person that's going is gonna get either a whatever, right? So that's procedural justice. That's also internal. I'm a huge believer of procedural justice for within the department. And I can tell you right now, we've gone through quite a bit of stuff over the last several years. And I have had to learn to slow down because I get excited about things and different ideas and let's do this. And I have had to learn to slow down, pause, and ask my officers, what is it that you actually need? To the point of where they're not even sure what to say because they haven't, the trust may not have been there this whole time, right? They've come through other issues. And I'm not using an excuse, I'm just giving you a reason, right? One of our big issues for the longest time, we have oversight, which every police department does and should, right? We've had some pretty dramatic directors where they're nickel and diming for every little thing, procedural justice. Not everybody is getting the same discipline. Not everybody is reporting the offense. They're handling it themselves in a different way, right? So there's all sorts of different things. And I do believe, personally, and I haven't had a chance to mention this, but I do believe
Well, maybe we should.
we need to empower our supervisors. So just like he's saying, we need to empower the captains to be able to run their precincts. And how you empower captains is by developing and empowering your command staff and asking your officers that are there, what do they need, and building that trust so that they feel they can actually tell you, right? And I do think that's a process. But with this oversight that we had, and again, I worked in internal affairs for 5 years, so I'm a big believer of it. But I can tell you right now, I worked there with one particular individual, the director, who was off the chart. Things that shouldn't have been at internal affairs. You think of internal affairs, you think, ooh, serious stuff, right? This is like they didn't do an in-car video check with their camera, but they have video, you know what I mean? But they're having to come up and have an interview. So there's this whole, I don't want to do anything extra in case I'm gonna get beefed. And it's not gonna be a fair process, it's not procedurally just, for them to be handled or talked to or developed or training with the people that work with them. There's a time and a place that something should go elsewhere, and that's for the department to establish. But we need to, for lack of a better way of saying it, we have great supervisors. We gotta give them empowerment to continue and to do more with their people. And one of those ways is by developing them, coaching them. Because up in it's called OPA at the time, it was Office of Professional Accountability. When I was up in OPA, a lot of times, these things that came forth were mistakes, clarification of training or policy. Very rare was an intentional, malicious, or criminal act. Give our officers a chance to get supervised. Give our supervisors a chance to do why they became supervisors. And only, and again, things that are important, that are high enough of a risk or what have you, should go to OPA, absolutely. But because we're nickel and diming every little thing that has no business being in OPA, we have a little bit of hesitation, a little lack of trust. I do think that's slowly changing, but we'll see.
Thank you. We have one more question for the chief of police discussion.
Maybe?
Yes.
Well, kind of. You mentioned, I'm the third generation Seattleite, there's not many of us left. And I lived in West Seattle for 27 years and 25 years in the North Village area. And our neighborhood is called Cottage Grove. So before I came, I did reach out to all my neighbors and sent them emails and said, hey, and texts, this thing, we should go. I was here the last one. Last time we talked about the population of Seattle, 747,000 is the population of Seattle as of 2020. Our district, we didn't know, it's 105,000 for District 1. So we are the largest district. I said this last time. We are the highest tax-paying district. That should be important to somebody. But we're the lowest crime district. So I did get a chance to look online at the Seattle, because I'm a big, as Jennifer may remember from past meetings, I'm a big advocate for numbers. Like, how many crimes are being committed? What's happening? The Seattle Police Department database is freaking incredible. It is like, I was so surprised, I did research last night, I got all these notes and stuff. I would encourage everyone to just look up Seattle Police Department. You can find the statistics you were talking about, the
Crime dashboard.
crime dashboard and what's the other one? There's another dashboard.
There's CSAT crime dashboard, there's shots fired dashboard, there's
But
the
they were
arrest
all
dashboard, there's the
amazing, and you
force
could see who, what had happened, when, and I had some questions, but I'm not gonna take any time. But Chief, welcome to Seattle. You are, it's a breath of fresh air, it's wonderful. Thank you, Kara, for having the chief here for this. We'll see the rest of you probably in a couple months. You had talked about neighborhood policing, and there was something that just like gave me incredible hope as a Seattleite. And that is that we could potentially have police officers that live within our neighborhood or a couple of neighborhoods. And that we know, and they know us. They don't need to know our name, but they know us. They know the kids. They know the school. Is that just a dream? Is that anything that we could ever see in Seattle again, where I could say, hey, my wall got tagged, officer, oh, okay, call this, you know? I mean, it's somebody that we know. I know my mail people. I went to the post office over here in Westwood Village, and I knew the mail person that came to help me. That's American and awesome. If we could get that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I'll just
That's a
say
goal.
that I can't do that because they can live where they want. When I got married, I told my wife I would buy her a house, but I didn't tell her where it was going to be. I'm sure most of us are probably like that, right? So they can pick where that's going to be. But, there's pros and cons to that as well. But I do think that you can certainly get to know and love a community. I'm just thinking back over my career. I remember putting officers as neighborhood officers, as patrol officers, and the community just falling in love with them. They've never even been to that neighborhood, they're from that city. And so I want that feeling for our officers. They'll get connected as we move into Seattle-centric policing. That's a big part of it. We call it neighborhood ownership, beat integrity. It's something that we do well anyway. And so we're just going to elevate that.
One thing I'll just say on that, we're very fortunate here in West Seattle to have officers who do live here with their families. We have some wonderful officers here in our space that live here, that have a different investment to the community, I think. And I think we're very, very fortunate to see that here in West Seattle, and I appreciate those officers. So thanks for bringing that.
I'm one of them. I've
Thank
lived
you,
in
Sean.
Delbridge and Alcott for 5 years. I've been here for 6. I know Dan from morning coffee runs, and I helped the Admiral Association with their issues. So there's quite a few police officers at your Southwest Precinct that live in your community. It is just a different professional makeup. Whether or not a police officer wants to choose to live in this community, like the chief said, there's pitfalls to that. It's just a personal choice. But out of every precinct that I've worked out of, this one has probably the most police officers that live where we work. So.
And there's also the officers, the Morgan Junction Starbucks is a very popular place.
Every day, yes.
You don't always like to get interrupted by some, crazy lady coming in and saying, oh, thank you for this, but go out and go to your local coffee shops and greet and say, hey, thank you for all you're doing, and did you guys get paid yet? So.
I would love to also lead with Coffee with the Cop. That's something me and Jennifer work to host up in High Point, and that's right at 6070 35th Avenue. That is Monday. That's no, it is actually where my new office space is, right on 35th. So there's QED Coffee, used to be Nose. And then right there's a big community space, and Jennifer has scheduled it to a shift change, so you'll see a lot of officers coming and going through that time of year. So I'm inviting you guys to come visit our community that we get to work in, to meet with the police that serve us in West Seattle.
Which is a great segue, because we also have, the coffee with the cop, and then we have CSOs. Jennifer, if you wanna talk, or you guys wanna talk about the resource fair?
Captain, would you like to, she would just like to give a quick closing
Oh, I'm
comment,
sorry.
and then we will get to our announcements.
Sure,
Thank you,
sorry.
Captain.
No, I just wanted to say the most important thing, and that is thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for being community partners with us, to all the officers in the back. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here as well. Thank you for everything that you do to keep Seattle safe. You are greatly appreciated once you hear that from absolutely everyone. It is true that there are some ongoing challenges, I think, in Seattle, like there are in every city. But I don't think that those ongoing challenges are bigger than all of us collectively putting our minds and our hearts to it. Yes, we have some challenges with staffing, and you're right, that's a branding issue, because I don't think we're 300 officers short, I think we're 1,000 officers strong. And that's how I choose to look at it, that's how I choose to look at life. So I thank you for being here, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to have my first community meeting.